This is the Candid podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, and thanks for tuning in. We got a doozy for this episode. Going to be talking about alpha male versus beta male and how it's a weak man's game. This is a podcast that I've been itching to make for quite a while now, but I wanted to wait until I established a definitive style and tone for my podcast before I finally produced this one. We live in a society right now where these weak online content creators and gurus are putting out all these videos and selling their expert services, telling you that these are the 10 things that you need to do to be an alpha male. Or if you're not doing these 10 things, then you're probably a beta male. And there are tons of desperate and misguided men walking around listening to this garbage and thinking that all men only have two options in life. You either choose the path of the loudmouth, overly aggressive, egotistical, self-absorbed, fake cap alpha male and live the life of a king where everyone fears you, money is no object, and bountiful amounts of women are at your disposal. Or you choose the path of the beta male where you will forever toil in obscurity, never amounting to anything in life, always live under the alpha male's foot, and women? Well, unless you plan on buying the kind from the store that you can blow up, forget about that. That's it. Those are your two choices. The entire concept of this alpha male versus beta male construct is one of the most ridiculous things that I think I've ever seen. Yet its popularity seems to be growing. This does not mean that men, specifically traditional men, shouldn't have certain qualities and traits that all good men should possess, because I'm not saying that at all. And we'll get to that later in the podcast. But traits and qualities only guide you along your path and help forge you as an individual. Nothing more, nothing less. To borrow an example from American football, a game we all love and cherish, we're going to look at a defense. And we'll say that the quarterback the defense is trying to prevent from scoring is life. So on this defense, we have a star defensive end who is consistently getting 18 to 20 sacks a season. He gets all the glory on the defense. Everybody wants him to sign their jerseys. All the men want to beat him. All the ladies want to be with him. And he's the most popular person on the defense because he consistently gets to the quarterback. That's who all of the alpha males claim to be. And they look at the other 10 players on the defense as beta males because they're not able to get sacks like Mr. Alpha Male does. Just because those other players aren't able to get to the quarterback and reap all the glory from it, that doesn't mean they don't affect the game in other ways and aren't playing up to their capabilities. Look, not everybody is born to be a defensive end. They can get 18 to 20 sacks a season. But that also doesn't mean they're worthless football players either. They're still on the field grinding, following their assignments, and playing their asses off to the best of their abilities. And that doesn't make them any less of a man or a beta male simply because they don't have the combination of things, including God-given talent, and again, we'll talk about that later, that it takes to get 18 to 20 sacks every season and be the star of the defense. Bottom line is that we need to look at men and male behavior in a completely different way than alpha male versus beta male. For one, simply because things just don't work like that in a civilized society. For two, it's childish, sophomoric, and borderline high schoolish thinking. And for three, because it's flat out stupid and unrealistic for more reasons than I can list. but I'm definitely going to give you more than a few reasons very shortly, so just hang tight. And finally, before I move on to my points, I'm sure the comment section on my YouTube channel is going to attract the usual keyboard warrior alpha males who are going to come in there and say, "Look guys, we found the beta male." And that's fine. I completely understand that no matter what I say, I'm still probably going to be accused of being a quote beta male, and I'm good with that. Unlike the bulk of the mentally weak men walking this planet, I really don't care one bit. I'm legitimately trying to debunk a bunch of fake news BS and hopefully uplift some dudes who are subscribing to a bunch of nonsense being spewed by idiot influencers looking to prey on some men who may be lost or currently in a bad mental state. So it doesn't matter to me what anyone thinks. Like I said, I'm going to give you multiple examples of how all of this alpha male thinking is nonsense, and then offer you a very simple concept of how men should actually look at themselves instead. We'll start off by looking at the literal definitions of an alpha male and a beta male, straight from dictionary.com. An alpha male is a male animal having the highest rank in a dominance hierarchy. It's also defined as the most dominant, powerful, or assertive man in a particular group. For a beta male, it's an animal having the second highest rank in a dominance hierarchy. The slang version of a beta male for us humans is a man who's perceived to be weak, mild-mannered, and generally unimpressive. Now, I'm going to start with the animal kingdom example first, because it's going to set up some key points that I'm going to make right now, as well as later on in the podcast. The animal kingdom is a prime example of why I think this whole concept of men trying to become alpha males in real life is actually pretty stupid. First off, we're not the damn animal kingdom. We have evolved into a society that is civilized, although I do question that sometimes, and doesn't operate under the brutally primitive, crude, and downright cold set of rules that the animal kingdom does, where the concept of having a true alpha and a true beta could literally mean the difference between life and death. For an example, let's look at an animal like a grizzly bear. Bears by nature are solitary animals, and while it is true they may gather and share resources every so often, bears are otherwise very solitary animals. If we look at a male grizzly bear running his yard, he has his sows, which are female bears, he has his food, he has his resources, and he may even have some little bear cubs running around as well. He's doing just dandy, and life is all roses until another grizzly bear comes along and decides, "Hey man, you know what? I kind of like what you got going on here, and I think I want all of it." The original grizzly bear says, "All of it, all of it?" To which the new grizzly bear responds, "Yeah, I'm thinking all of it, all of it." So in the animal kingdom, the only way to solve this rather uncomfortable situation is for the two bears to get into physical combat to decide which one gets to stay and which one has to kick rocks. Now let's just say in that situation, the new bear is the winner and he's declared the alpha. The original bear, who was the loser of this fight, is now forced to vacate the entire area and start his life all over again. That bear loses his territory, he loses his sows, he loses his food, he loses his resources, and the new bear will almost certainly unalive any of his cubs in the area because he doesn't want the bloodline of another bear running around in his new yard. So in this situation, the bear that is considered the beta literally loses everything. And if he's lucky, at least he gets to walk away with his life. So yes, Alpha male versus beta male does apply here because there can truly only be one alpha bear who dominates that particular piece of territory they just fought over. And the beta bear has to go somewhere else and start all over again. Yep, nature is a real B word sometimes. But when it comes to us humans, there's no way this concept can apply to us simply because our society is not structured in a way where only one person rules an entire piece of territory and must constantly fight off other challengers to maintain rule of said territory. One could argue that we are the alpha males of our homes, but that's about as far as it gets. Once you step outside the house, you don't own a damn thing. And you're not fighting anybody else over resources in order to survive. If you're hungry, you go to the grocery store and you buy milk, cheese, meat, fish, and whatever the hell else you need, just like the rest of society does. You don't have to deal with a constant fight or a struggle for resources where you must consistently overcome another man just in order to eat, sleep, or even shack up with a woman in peace. So the whole concept of being an alpha male in a civilized society means absolutely nothing to anyone except you and your weak ass ego. The only human exception to this example would be something like prison life. And I'm talking hard prison life, not being locked up in the county jail for a few days. Now, I have never done time in prison, nor have I ever been to jail in my life. But we've all seen the numerous documentaries about how prison life works. And it's really the only example of where human society comes close to mirroring the alpha male versus beta male construct we see in the animal kingdom. In almost every prison where inmates are doing some hard time for some serious crimes, you're forced to group up by race for survival. That's just how it is. No matter what you personally believe or who you want to be cool with, them's are the rules in most prisons. And oftentimes, these groups you join in prison are just straight up gangs. So, for example, you have the whites and the Aryan Brotherhood or the Nazi lowrider gang. You have the blacks and the Crips, Bloods, or Black Guerrilla Family gang. And you have the Mexicans and the Mexican Mafia or La Familia gangs, etc., etc. Now, within those gang substructures, yes, you do have what one could deem an alpha male, often called a shot caller in prison, who is the man telling everybody else in the gang who to do what to and when, and generally providing structure and making rules for how gang operations should run. Under the brutally primitive, crude, and downright cold prison rules, where you can literally get shanked, which is being stuck with something sharp, beaten up, or even have your life taken at any moment, yes, you do what you're told to do by that alpha male of the gang you're a part of, or else really bad things happen to you. In prison, just like the animal kingdom, you're confined to a specific area and resources are extremely scarce and very hard to find. So people will try to bully you for your food, your possessions, and even try to force themselves on you sexually to assert their dominance. So in that environment, you are forced to behave more like an alpha male grizzly bear in the wild, because if you allow someone to physically take all of your resources and punk you in jail, then you lose. You will forever be known as a beta male, and you will continue to get punked even more and have your resources taken from you. Even with all that being said, being an overly aggressive, puffed up alpha male may help you survive in prison, but it can also get you more time in prison. And pulling that BS outside of prison will only land you in prison. Or if you try the wrong person, you're going to end up badly hurt. Or even worse, get your dumb ass corked and sent to meet your maker by someone who decided to level the playing field. More on that point a little later. The bottom line is that this entire alpha male versus beta male concept was meant for the animal kingdom, where being an overly aggressive, dominant alpha male, always looking to show how tough you are, is a necessity to survival. But in our human society, it's pretty lame, weak, and a childish way to think and behave. And almost all outward acting alpha males probably need to go ahead and get that micropene surgery, heal up, and then invest in a good therapist. And this is actually a perfect segue into my next point, which is that only mentally weak men care about being seen as an alpha male or have to perform acts that hurt other men in some way to prove that they're an alpha. I mentioned this in a previous podcast on gym culture, where I talked about how some mentally weak alpha males will walk into a gym and immediately try to find the strongest guy in the gym and make sure that he lifts 5 to 10 pounds more than the guy who's minding his own business in an effort to somehow show dominance over that guy by demonstrating how much stronger the wannabe alpha male is. Now, I do understand that some of these clowns also have cameras with them and try to film this BS and put it on Instagram or TikTok for content, but it's still for the explicit reason of shaming the other man in the video and trying to make the content creator look like an alpha or a stronger male. And in my opinion, that's just weak. I've also seen videos of, and personally witnessed myself, these wannabe alpha males try to steal another man's woman when they clearly know she has a man and they know said man is nearby. I remember seeing some videos of these weak alpha men teaming up with a simp friend where they'll see a couple walking down the street and the alpha male will try to talk to the woman and get her number while his simp accomplice distracts her man with some stupid ass conversation or pretends like he's asking for directions. You guys know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you've seen it before. And as I said before, I personally witnessed something related, but not quite similar in my old gym years ago. There was a guy who had what you would consider a normal male build. He wasn't skinny as in frail, but he also wasn't crazy jacked. He probably weighed exactly what he was supposed to for his height. Anyway, he wasn't an intimidating looking man at all. And he was with this younger woman who had a body that would stop traffic, and she was pretty attractive too. Well, a guy walked into the workout area who you could tell was a typical meathead wannabe alpha. He clearly saw that this woman and the man that I spoke of were a couple. But do you think that stopped him from trying to execute Operation Weak Ass Move? Nope. As soon as this woman's man walked away and went to some cardio equipment, Mr. Meathead went over to this woman and started trying to run game on her. She clearly told him she wasn't interested, and she even pointed directly at her man, probably saying, "That's my husband/boyfriend over there." But Mr. Meathead just wouldn't let it go until the woman finally packed up her stuff and physically walked over to where her man was working out. Those two situations that I mentioned demonstrate how lame these wannabe alpha males really are, and their actions are downright clownish. Why, you ask? Well, 2 reasons. Number 1, because neither of these big tough alphas went after women whose men actually looked like they were a threat or would have gotten physical with Mr. Alpha Dog bark, bark, for approaching their woman. So what the hell does that actually even prove? If you're some big tough alpha dog, then why don't you try to go and prove how much of a man and a badass you are against someone who looks to be your equal? Constantly trying to prey on or take advantage of people clearly visibly weaker looking than you is a P-words game. That's why even when it comes to fighting, we have these things called weight divisions. so that bigger, stronger guys can't pummel weaker men in fights that aren't fair. The heavyweight boxing champion of the world has way more of a right to call himself an alpha male than most of these cowards pretending to be one. Yet, strangely, most fighters are some of the coolest, most chill men walking the planet. And you never know how dangerous they really are if they weren't on TV turning people's lights out for a living. And the second reason why you lame alpha males are really just walking clowns in these situations is because it demonstrates how weak and small your mind really is. Who the hell walks into a gym, a restaurant, a store, or wherever, and the first thing you think about is, and I'm going to do this in my Batman voice, I have to assert my dominance. The first thing I do when I walk onto the gym floor is scan around and see if the piece of equipment that I'm looking for is open. Is the place crowded? Are there enough plates nearby for my workout? And so on and so forth. The same thing goes when I walk into a restaurant. The first thing that I think of is this place crowded? How long is it going to take for me to get a seat? What's on the menu? Are there desserts any good? Etc., etc. What sane person walks into a gym or a restaurant and looks around trying to find a man in there and somehow show him up or try to steal his woman on the sly when he steps away? It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Now, I will admit there are occasions when you walk into a place and you may see a guy who just looks like he's maybe a little bit or even a lot off. And you may loosely keep an eye on him in case he snaps and goes postal or something like that. But that's really about it. And that's more of a safety concern than you attempting to show dominance in some way. Other than that, no mentally strong man walks around daily life looking for ways to show off his alphahood, like some childish grade school bully trying to run the entire playground at recess. Now let's talk about another reason why all this alpha male talk is for the weak. And that's because if you're listening to another grown-ass man tell you how to walk, talk, and act, you're actually becoming more of a beta, to put it in weak men's terms. One of the biggest problems I have with all of this mess is that men who are trying to get on the path to being an alpha male are actually becoming more weak-minded in the process. The way I look at this is that a real man does not give a damn about what anybody else thinks. He goes about his life how he wants to, makes the best decisions for his specific situation, and the main thing he cares about are his values and behaving like a good, upstanding citizen. It really does crack me up at how all of these weak men out here soak up what some internet D-bag tells them are the qualities that make you an alpha. Which actually brings me to one of my main issues with this whole damn debate, which is the completely arbitrary criteria for even being able to consider yourself an alpha in the first place. We have 3 different case studies as an example of what I'm talking about. Alpha dog number 1 is all about being big, tough, and physically strong. So he's telling you that you should be able to bench press 400 pounds to qualify as an alpha. But was he saying that to himself before he could even bench press 100 pounds himself? Of course not. He's only saying that because he's reached a certain level with the help of copious amounts of PEDs, and now he's trying to tell everybody else that you have to get to his level in order to be an alpha male. You're literally listening to another dude behind a screen yell at you and tell you how much of a failure you are because you can't do some arbitrary thing like bench press 400 pounds. All while he never even knew if he could do it himself until he actually did it. And is most likely getting external help to do so on top of that, which a real alpha dog shouldn't need. Last time I remember, grizzly bears don't hop on the juice before going to take down an alpha bear. Then again, what the hell do I know? You can get everything delivered anywhere these days. So maybe them bears are getting some pharmaceuticals delivered to their caves in the woods to get that extra help they need to get the job done in combat. Not only that, but being big, muscular, aggressive, angry, and intimidating looking doesn't mean you can actually fight. And being honest, huge muscles are actually a detriment to you being able to even be competitive in a real fight. Newsflash, muscles need lots of oxygen in order to function. So the more built you are, the more oxygen all them muscles are going to require. Plenty of idiots walking around with their popcorn muscles trying to act like aggressive alpha males have had their clocks absolutely cleaned when they pick a fight with a man half their size that actually trains in a combat sport. Now, being fair, muscles do look good and they do make you strong and aesthetic looking. But as the sage Yoda from Star Wars would say, an alpha male muscles do not make. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's always the small, quiet guy in the back of the room minding his own damn business in solitude that you really need to be afraid of. Well, maybe not afraid of, but he does usually win the award of the one guy in the room you least want to F with. Moving on with our case study, we have Alpha Dog number 2, telling you that if you don't have at least $200,000 worth of free money in your bank account, flashy cars, flashy jewelry, and flaunt your worldly possessions, you're not a high-value man or an alpha dog. But again, was that guy telling himself those things when he was living in his mom's basement at 30 years old, whacking his little wiener off to them weirdo adult films? Of course not. But he can say that now because he lucked up and made it, or his grinding actually paid off. But guess what? That does not guarantee that if you do the same things he did, you'll have the same success. Plenty of men work their asses off trying to get true financial freedom. Sometimes life has other plans for you. Serious illness, family situations, divorce, job layoffs, and a whole host of other things can derail even the best laid plans. And just because life happened for you and not that guy, you're less of a man now? Let's look at guys like Jeff Bezos, former owner of Amazon, Tim Wozniak, co-owner of Apple, Steve Jobs, deceased co-owner of Apple, and Bill Gates, former owner of Microsoft. By today's standards, none of those guys will be considered alpha males by the way they look and carry themselves. These are some of the richest and most successful men to ever walk the planet. Yet if you didn't know who they were because of the publicity their companies receive, you wouldn't have a clue of how much wealth they've amassed because of how unassuming they are in real life. That's because they don't give a damn about walking around and presenting themselves in a certain way to impress other people. I've talked about this in another podcast, but most men who are actually about that life don't go around telling everybody they're about that life. I forgot to mention somebody like Mark Zuckerberg. And even though Mark does train MMA strictly for fun, if you didn't know that he was the founder of Facebook, you would think that he's just another worthless, nerdy dork doing dorky things because he's not out there presenting himself like some kind of badass or trying to fit some weak social construct that calls for him to flash his money and power to show others how superior he is to them. Then finally, we have alpha male number 3, whose criteria for being one of the select few special males walking the earth is how easily you can get women and sleep with them, how many women you've already slept with, how large your current roster of women is, or how pretty your girlfriend or wife is. Yes, because using women just for sex is so manly and tough. And having a super hot girlfriend that other men dream of definitely elevates your life and comes with tons of extra perks like, oh yeah, and then there's, oh yeah, oh yeah, that's right. But we can't forget about, look, I'm not hating on any man that has a universally attractive woman. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And honestly, congrats to you on being able to be with her. But truth be told, having a beautiful woman also comes with its own set of issues because now you have to deal with every man and his dad wanting to holler at her even when you're around, just like in some of the examples I gave earlier. So now you got to deal with that headache too. Not only that, but a grown-ass man bragging about women or sexual conquest to prove his alpha status again dips down to that junior high school level I spoke about a bit ago. And it definitely makes you look as if you're overcompensating for something else. Now what could that be? Contrary to popular belief, none of this BS that I just spoke on matters one bit. Only weak men care about what other men think about them and their life. None of these things have anything to do with how you carry yourself in daily life, how you treat people, or your contributions to society and the people around you. It's just all about your bank account, your physique, your looks, and sleeping with women. All these lames out here trying to sell you all these plans and tell you what you need to do to be an alpha male by using shame and degradation are basically online doms, and they're trying to treat you like they're male sub. Who the hell cares if some puffed up hot air balloon online says that playing Dungeons and Dragons games are weak, or spending tons of time on a computer makes you a geek? Who cares if you want to collect those Pokemon cards and try to flip them for cash? Again, this bears repeating. If you're listening to what other men tell you to do in order to achieve some kind of God tier alpha male status, you will always remain a weak-minded person who bends to the will of other men. And that's completely opposite of what these goofs are trying to tell you that an alpha male really is. Now, with that being said, there are certain qualities and traits that all good men should possess, and I will get to that in a bit. But that's completely different than somebody laying out a bunch of ridiculous, potentially unattainable requirements and landmark achievements that you have to meet in order to satisfy their criteria of what a real man is. And to clear up any potential confusion about what I mean here, let me give you a quick example. For the sake of this discussion only, let's say that you're a man in a traditional old school relationship where the woman is the homemaker who takes care of the kids and you, the man, are the one who works and brings home the bacon. In that kind of relationship, the qualities of a good man is one who works hard, provides for his family, keeps them safe and protected, raises his kids with good morals and values, and assists his wife when needed. Conversely, the qualities of a good woman in this relationship is a woman who is going to make sure that she turns the house into a home. She's preparing the meals, getting the kids to and from school, doing most of the domestic chores, and running the bulk of the errands, etc., etc. Now, obviously, a chore or responsibility may be flip-flopped here or there, but you get my point overall. All I did there is list core roles and responsibilities needed to make this kind of relationship function as it should. What I didn't do is say that only a good wife wakes up at 4 a.m. every day to make her man breakfast, or that only a good wife lays out all of her man's clothes every morning before work, or that only a good man worth anything takes his family on at least 2 vacations a year. All those things are arbitrary requirements that others may be receiving in their relationship, which is great. But that doesn't make your relationship completely worthless or any less successful in any way, shape, or form. To summarize this point and move on, I'm going to go back to what I originally said is one of my main issues with all this alpha versus beta BS. And that's the arbitrary criteria. I mean, what truly makes you a real alpha in the minds of other supposed alpha males? Is it the physical accomplishments or intimidation? Is it money, things, and social status? Is it how many women you bag or how hot your girlfriend is? All of the above? Some of the above? Or none of the above? What we really need here is an OAAA, an official association of asshole alphas who can formulate some kind of curriculum with real accreditation, just like an actual university, so that all of us lesser casual men can become officially certified alpha males. I mean, imagine stacking something like that up against some loser who got his master's degree. And it's pretty clear who the winner in life is going to be. Let me stop, because I may be actually giving some alpha dirtbag who hears this a free idea for his next online scam. Alpha male you coming to you now fully accredited. Let's move on. Real men also understand that your money and social status doesn't equate to happiness, nor does it make you any better than anyone else. I also talked about this in a previous podcast, and it definitely ties into what I just got done talking about, but it still bears repeating. Real men understand that having all the money, fame, women, assets, resources, or even one of the best physiques in the world does not equal happiness or grant you the title of being an alpha male. Oftentimes, the opposite is actually true. There are plenty of instances where externally, some men may look like king alpha lions ruling the world with all their money, power, and fame. But secretly on the inside, they're insecure, fragile men using all of those worldly things to mask the fact that they have mental issues they're struggling with. And in private, they don't actually feel like the alpha male they present themselves to be when the public is watching. This is just another great example of what you see ain't always what you get. Or to quote something my old pastor used to say, smiling faces tell lies. And we can look to one of the greatest heavyweight boxing champions of all time, Mike Tyson, for further proof of what I'm saying. Back when he was absolutely obliterating everyone in the heavyweight division, Mike Tyson was the poster child of what you would consider an alpha male. He had all the money, fame, and women that any man could ever want. But on the inside, he was absolutely miserable. None of the material things that I just mentioned made Mike Tyson happy, despite him constantly being able to get more of them. More money, more women, more cars. None of it worked. Now, if you fast forward to present day Mike Tyson, he's regularly talked about being so much happier now that he's married, has kids, and a family, and he's just enjoying his life without all of the extreme excess. When Mike was asked what kind of legacy he wants to leave behind when he's gone, he literally said, "Who the F cares about legacy? None of that stuff matters because he's going to be dead. Who cares what you did while you were here? Nobody's going to be thinking about you or even care about you once you're gone. Maybe your wife and kids, but that's really it. But none of that legacy and accomplishment stuff matters once you're gone. And why should it? You're dead. So you're not going to know what people are saying about you anyway." That's a pretty big truth bomb from Iron Mike, and yet another example of why this alpha male BS is stupid. Accomplishments and things ultimately don't make you happy, special, or even matter. And once you're gone, nobody's going to care. What matters most is not about showing dominance and conquest, but how you treat the other people around you, how you care for the people around you, being a good husband, a good father, a good uncle, a good friend, a good brother, and so on and so on. Now, don't get me wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having goals you're focusing on crushing and wanting to be successful at life as a whole, because that's what every good man should be working towards. But success in life looks very different for everyone. And the whole concept behind this alpha male nonsense is way more centered on how the whole world sees you, instead of focusing on being your true authentic self and only caring about being the best version of yourself to the people that matter to you. My final 2 points are actually aimed squarely at all of the alpha males that seem to focus heavily on the purely physical aspect of being included in their exclusive little club. And the first one that I'm going to pull the curtain back on for all you supposed betas out there who are looking to level up physically to alpha male territory is that genetics matter. Unless you're willing to hop on the sawzle. One of the biggest war cries from all of these alpha male types is that you need to get in the gym and start becoming an aggressive monster, both mentally and physically. These losers prey on a lot of men who wake up every day and may see themselves as physically weaker in order to further get inside these men's heads, confirm their perceived weaknesses, and then use that to try to get these men to buy their snake oil supplements, expensive workout plans, products, or even personal training. There are some men who even offer services where they will consult with other men and judge them on their looks, tell them how to groom themselves, how to dress, etc., etc. Now, obviously, I do encourage every man to hit the gym and work out on a consistent basis. And I talked about that at length in a previous podcast as well, on the 8 things men can do to improve themselves. So I am all about that gym life and self-improvement in that area. However, with that being said, how you progress in the gym, what your max lifting capabilities are, and how your physique turns out overall is going to be solely based upon your genetics. But that's what a lot of these con men, fake alpha males don't tell you. For most people, I don't care how much they lift or what they do. There are always going to be certain body parts that lag behind others, certain strength metrics they cannot hit, and certain lifts they just don't perform as well as others, period. For example, there's no supplement, program, or personal training available known to man that's going to fix MMA heavyweight champion John Jones's comically thin calves. Literally, the only thing he could do to fix that issue would be to get calf implants, if that's even a thing. And as always, I have to add my disclaimer that I'm not throwing shade at John Jones. He knows his calves are comically thin, and he's joked about it many times as well. But my point is that all of these alpha males shame most men into believing they're just a bunch of lazy, weak asses because this body part doesn't look good, or that body part doesn't look good, or because they can't lift X amount of weight. When in reality, no, you can't achieve alpha male physiques without hard work and dedication. But genetics also play the biggest factor in how your body is going to end up developing physically. But why would they tell you that when instead they can sell you some personal training or get you to buy their new Pec Builder 2000 workout program? And again, don't get me wrong. I'm not even saying that some of these workout programs and products aren't legit, just that they are not guaranteed to get you the exact results that you're looking for or the body that these alpha males claim you need to have in order to be just like them. Just how I mentioned earlier that success and life looks different for everyone, well, that exact same thing applies here too. And while I'm on the whole physique subject, let's talk about the real elephant in the room that none of these alpha male losers tell you. And I mentioned this earlier as well too. And that's the fact that almost all of them are getting some external help that comes from inside a needle in order to achieve these incredible feats of strength and perfectly aesthetic physiques. Most of these dudes are running legit cycles of roids that consist of numerous compounds. But even for the few that are just using testosterone or TRT, the fact remains that they aren't constantly smashing PRs and developing lagging body parts just by using their legal supplements and workout programs. Look, man, everybody can do what they want with their life, and I personally could care less. But the biggest issues that I have here is all of the fake natural guys who shame all of the beta males for not looking like monsters, all while they're not being honest about their damn horse steroid usage. Again, all because they want you to buy their programs, services, and products. Wait a minute. Real alpha males lie and cheat people? Well, technically, no, because real men don't operate that way at all. It's all a complete joke, and yet another example of why no man should ever be looking up to these guys at all. To finish up this whole point of how genetics are so important here, the same thing applies to all the alpha goofs setting standards on how many women you have to bag, how many women you have on your roster, or how hot your woman is. First off, it's stupid. But secondly, a good amount of a man's success with women is going to be based upon how his face looks, aka the genetics you were born with. People can say whatever they want to say, but not everybody is born looking like what I would call universally attractive. Most people walking this earth look average, but some look way above average, and unfortunately, some look way below average. You can lose all the weight you want to and get in the best shape of your life, and that's definitely going to help you for sure. But oftentimes, if you have a face that is just not universally attractive, you're going to have less women being interested in wanting to date you. Just how it goes. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that you can't meet any women at all. And some guys have made up for their lack of looks with a great personality. But the fact remains, and this is when you throw money out the window, that men who are born with more universally attractive faces are going to have a much easier time meeting women. Especially in this day and age when women's standards are ridiculously high and the barrier for entry to dating also includes you apparently having to be 6 foot tall, which is something that's also purely based on your genetics, unless you're one of those weirdo clowns who wears lifts in your shoes. But here's a news flash. You're still not truly 6 foot tall. Sorry, buddy. My point here is that just because some of these supposed alpha goofs out there won the genetic lottery, and that gives them easier access to more and better looking women, that does not make them special. They didn't have to work towards getting their face better looking. They just lucked up and were born with DNA that blessed them with a universally attractive mug. And again, I'm not hating on these guys. Good for them. They won the genetic lottery. I'm sure all men would love to be in that position, but we're not. And that doesn't make any dude walking this planet less of a man because he didn't and can't reap the perceived benefits of what comes along with being universally attractive. Oh, and one last thing I mentioned earlier, and that was men getting alpha male counseling, where they will consult with other men and get judged on their looks, how they dress, and all that kind of stuff. Personally, I'm just not with that. Men have friends, and there is nothing wrong with asking a friend how a new haircut looks or how something you're wearing fits you, etc., etc. But having another man judge me and tell me how to dress, walk, talk, or cut my hair seems pretty weak and kind of weird. I understand men wanting to be the best versions of themselves, and I always support that. But for me personally, there's also a limit. I mean, if you're bad at fashion, I guess I could maybe understand getting a stylist who's an expert in that field that will find the clothing colors and styles that look best on you. But I just can't see hiring some rando alpha male trainer off the internet and having him say, you have a big nose, so maybe grow a huge beard to make your face look bigger and your nose look smaller. I'm going to wear my facial hair how I want to and in the style that suits me best. I'm not going to go grow out a beard or not grow out a beard just to impress some woman or anyone else for that matter. As men, we should always make improvements and continue to evolve, but also always be you and stay authentic to yourself too. Who cares what anyone else thinks? Again, that's how real men think. And now we're on to the second of my 2 points I mentioned earlier that I aim squarely at the physical aspect of being an alpha male, which is weapons, particularly firearms, change the game. Going back to my animal kingdom example as to why this whole alpha male concept is stupid for humans, because last time I checked, as I said, grizzly bears don't show up to a fight carrying a blade or packing heat. The winner between two grizzly bears fighting is based solely off of their size, strength, and physical abilities, nothing else. A beta grizzly bear doesn't have the ability to use an equalizer during a fight to overcome an alpha male grizzly bear that may be whooping his natural ass. But humans can, and oftentimes they do. See, these puffed up alpha males always want to play up the machismo and tough physical aspect of being a big dog, bark, bark, alpha, because it plays on the psyche of men who are weaker minded. But nowadays, all them popcorn muscles plus a $1.08 will get you something off the dollar meal at McDonald's. It don't mean jack crap. Gone are the days of two willing combatants getting into a scrap, scuffle, or throwing some good old fisticuffs. They potentially shook hands and the better man walked away as the winner and the alpha dog. The only place where this situation applies in everyday life is within organized combat sports like boxing, Muay Thai, MMA, and so on. But outside of combat sports, you could be the biggest, baddest, most aggressive, strongest, 6'2", 250-pound alpha doggy walking the planet. You get into a fight with a dude who's 5'5", 135 pounds, soaking wet, and that dude pulls out one of them things. Guess who's the alpha male now, you clown? Here's a hint. It ain't you. I don't care who the hell you are or who the hell you're pretending to be. If a dude pulls out a bang stick on you and tells you to get the hell off of him or else, if you want to live to see the next 5 minutes of your life, you're going to do whatever the hell that man tells you to do. Period. You're not the alpha male at that point. The man with the weapon in his hand is. And this is all provided the man doesn't just exercise his legal right to protect his life from dumbassery and plug the living hell out of you right then and there. Now, whether you agree with it or not, firearms are here to stay. And any man who doesn't have a felony on his record can legally carry one concealed, which pretty much makes any man in possession of a pew an alpha male if he gets into a skirmish with a man who ain't carrying. Now, let me be clear and say that obviously I am not endorsing men just going around popping caps off at other dudes for no reason at all or over something incredibly stupid, because that's just as weak and actually more dangerous as a puffed up alpha male is. I'm just trying to make the point that one of the major calling cards of these fake alphas is looking and acting all aggressively in an attempt to assert dominance over or intimidate others. But the fact of the matter is that none of that BS matters one bit, because humans are not the animal kingdom and fair fights are not guaranteed. Some men have literally, and yes, I do mean literally, plugged their own damn fathers and taken them off this earth forever over something as stupid as arguing over a college football game. So your oversized pecs, bulging biceps, and ultra aggressiveness may grant you a plus 45 stat bonus, but they don't protect you from permadeath if you start messing with the wrong person at the right time. So now that I've obliterated the whole alpha male persona to pieces, I want to give you a brief response to the obvious question, which is, well, how should men carry themselves then? For the sake of this discussion only, I will use this term. Be a Sigma male. Now, before anyone calls me a hypocrite, I'm simply using this term because I'm discussing alpha versus beta males, and it's probably a term that most can already identify with. I do not, let me repeat, do not believe in walking around referring to yourself under any of these terms, because I don't and never will, because it's lame. But if I had to use a term to describe how a man should behave in life, Sigma male is the closest example. For anyone who hasn't heard any of my other podcasts, I believe in the theory that both things can be true. Walking around referring to yourself as a Sigma male is pretty lame, but that doesn't mean that the qualities associated with that term aren't a great set of guidelines to live by either. A Sigma male is a term used to describe a highly independent and self-reliant man who operates outside traditional social norms. Pretty much all of the core qualities listed under the Sigma male type I've already discussed in this podcast. Independence and self-reliance. Sigma males are characterized by their strong sense of independence and ability to rely on themselves rather than seeking validation from others. Nonconformity. Sigma males tend to challenge traditional social norms and prefer to live on their own terms, often viewing themselves as outside of the mainstream. Intellectual curiosity. Sigma males are often described as having a strong intellectual curiosity and a tendency to question authority or established systems. Not seeking social recognition. Unlike alpha males, who may seek dominance and power, Sigma males are not driven by a need for social recognition or climbing the social ladder. Inconsistent with alpha male traits. While they may share some traits with alpha males, such as confidence and self-assurance, Sigma males are less focused on competition or leading a group. And finally, we have skeptical of social systems. Sigma males often have a skeptical view of social systems and established structures, preferring to rely on their own judgment and internal logic. Wow, what a concept. All of these examples of Sigma male traits reinforce the fact that real men don't go around worrying about what other men think of them. And any man trying to live up to or look up to another man that proclaims he's an alpha male will forever be a weak-minded follower that's always going to be tailoring his actions to fulfilling social norms or social systems instead of following his own wants, dreams, and path in life. Again, the Sigma male type is neither an alpha nor a beta, and he doesn't care what others think of him. He simply chooses to focus on being strong-minded and work on mastering the good qualities that all men should possess to be the best versions of themselves. Only weak-minded men follow the superficial fake alpha male BS that the social media and YouTube generation has marketed as the only path in life if you want to be a real man. That's just fake news, and I'm putting an end to that narrative right now. Being a real man is all about having an incredibly strong mind, sticking to your personal morals and convictions, and having the courage to be willing to step up and protect yourself and those you love if needed, no matter what the outcome. But you're never walking around looking for a fight either. I don't care if some wannabe alpha male is 6'3" tall, 245 pounds, and you're only 5'8" tall, 145 pounds. If that wannabe monster blatantly disrespects your woman by grabbing her, touching her inappropriately, or whatever you can come up with, I don't give a damn if it's a fight you know you'll lose. A real man will always stand up and protect his loved ones no matter what the potential outcome. And that's the mentality all strong-minded men should have. If you lose the fight, so what? You did what you had to do to protect what you love and cherish against a threat. And you let that weak-minded alpha male, and the rest of the world for that matter, know that just because someone may be big and strong, it doesn't mean people are automatically going to bow down to their false alphahood. And besides, it's not like all of your money, possessions, your woman, your kids, and everything you've worked hard for in life just instantly get transferred to the alpha male who beat you in a fight, like in the animal kingdom, which is yet another reason the entire alpha male versus beta male construct in real life is all stupid. The bottom line is that real men choose peace, but are always ready for war if the situation calls for it. Only weak-minded men go around seeking war and trying to assert dominance when peace should always be the first option. This is yet another one of the many reasons why I said, just for the sake of this discussion, the path of the Sigma male is the one that all men should walk, because that's exactly how a true Sigma male would think and behave. Go about your way, focus on yourself, mind your own business, work on building yourself up as a man, but always be cognizant of and fully prepared to handle any threat coming your way, no matter how big, dangerous, or insurmountable it may appear. That's how real men, minus any BS honorifics and titles, operate. Well, this one ended up going a bit longer than expected, but it is what it is. I'll just finish up by saying this. If you're a man looking to become an alpha male, I have a better idea for you. Why don't you skip all the speeches, classes, online seminars, and other nonsense BS? Just look yourself in the mirror and start finding small ways to better yourself. Start doing things that you like to do. Take up a new hobby. Start reading some legit self-help books. Or even start hitting the gym if you haven't already. Bottom line is to start making some realistic goals for yourself and taking steps that improve what you want your life to look like. You don't have to live by or meet some stupid ass metric like earning a certain amount of money, having a certain career, bagging tons of women, or having a certain status in society, because none of that crap really matters when it's all said and done. I've also mentioned this in a previous podcast. Hospice nurses routinely say that when they're giving end-of-life care and literally watching people leave the earth, they never hear millionaires say that they wish they'd made more money or slept with more women or bought more cars or conquered their biggest rival. These patients always talk about how they wish they'd spent more time with their kids or even had kids, how they would have gotten married, spent more time with their immediate family, made more friends, focused on doing more good in society, and the list goes on and on. Because all of those things are priceless and they're worth way more than acting like some cocky, aggressive, morally deficient D-bag just to say that your only 3 friends in life, your first cousin Louie, and that one guy down the street once viewed you as an alpha male. And to all of you weaklings out there who are going to say, man, it's just a dog-eat-dog world out here, man. You just ain't hard enough for it yet, cuz, and you just trying to mask your weakness. To you, I politely say, man, shut up. As always, if you're listening in on YouTube, I appreciate a like, a subscribe, or you leaving a comment. I'm continuing to try to bring you great content, and I hope that you enjoy the kind of podcast that I'm bringing to you. Thanks for listening in. I will catch you on the next one.